I am still alive. Trust no one. I thought it was a sick prank until I found the hidden safe, the secret flash drive, and proof that the people I loved most, my sister, my brother-in-law, even my own kids, had been poisoning him for months. They wanted the $2 million life insurance payout. They wanted him gone. And when he came back from the dead, that's when the real nightmare began. Betrayal, greed, family secrets that will haunt you forever. Watch if you dare, because once you start, you won't trust anyone either.
The rain didn't just fall that morning, it attacked. Thick, relentless sheets slammed against the black umbrellas and soaked straight through my coat like it was trying to drown me along with everything else. October in the Pacific Northwest is never kind, but that day felt personal. I stood at the edge of the open grave in St. Mary's Cemetery, just outside Seattle, my black heels sinking into the mud, clutching a single white rose so tightly the thorns drew blood through my glove. I didn't feel it. I barely felt anything. David's coffin sat suspended over the hole, polished mahogany gleaming under the gray sky like it was mocking us. 45 years old, gone in one night. Heart attack, the doctor had said. Sudden, massive, mercifully quick. Those were the words everyone kept repeating to me like a prayer. Mercifully quick, as if that made it better. As if quick erased the image of him collapsing in our kitchen 2 mornings ago, coffee mug shattering on the tile, his eyes wide with something that looked almost like surprise.
I couldn't stop staring at the coffin. Closed. They told me it was best that way. He didn't look peaceful, the funeral director had whispered, like that was supposed to comfort me. So I stood there imagining what was inside. The man I'd loved since college, the father of my children, the one who still kissed my forehead every night even after 22 years. Now reduced to a box and a hole and a pile of wet dirt waiting to swallow him. Emily stood to my left, 19 and already too tall for this kind of grief. She hadn't cried once, not in front of me anyway. Her jaw was locked, eyes fixed on the coffin like she was daring it to move. Jake, 17 and suddenly looking 12 again, was on my right, hood up, hands shoved deep in his pockets. He kept rocking back and forth on his heels, the way he used to when he was little and scared of thunderstorms. I wanted to reach for both of them, pull them close, but my arms felt like lead. I was afraid if I touched them, they'd disappear too. My sister Laura hovered just behind me, one arm around my shoulders like she was afraid I'd collapse. She'd flown in from Portland the night David died and hadn't left my side since. "You're not alone, Sarah," she kept saying, voice soft and steady. "We're all here." Her perfume, something floral and expensive, mixed with the wet earth smell and made my stomach turn. David's brother, Mark, stood at the head of the coffin, delivering the eulogy. He'd insisted on doing it, said it was his right as the older sibling. His voice cracked at all the right moments, practiced almost, theatrical. "David was the best of us," he said, pausing to wipe his eyes. "A brilliant architect, a devoted husband, the kind of father every kid dreams of having. He built things that lasted. He built a family that will last." People nodded. Someone murmured, "Amen." I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stood there, rain dripping off the brim of my hat, watching the droplets slide down the polished wood. That's when it happened. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Once, sharp, angry almost. I ignored it. Funerals aren't for notifications. But 30 seconds later, it buzzed again, insistent, the way David's texts always were when he was running late from a job site. I slipped my hand inside just to silence it, thumbed the side button without looking. The screen lit up anyway. David's name, his number, the one I'd saved as home for 20 years, the one I still called when I was grocery shopping and couldn't remember if we needed milk. The message was short. "I am still alive. Trust no one." My knees gave out. The rose slipped from my fingers and landed in the mud with a wet slap. Emily grabbed my elbow. "Mom?" Her voice sounded far away, like I was underwater. I couldn't answer. I just stared at the screen,
rain smearing across the glass, making the words blur and then sharpen again. I typed back with shaking fingers, barely able to hit the keys. Who is this? Sent. No dots, no reply, just delivered. The priest started the final commendation. Into your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant David. His voice droned on, calm and holy, while my pulse hammered in my ears so loud I thought everyone could hear it. I looked up. Mark was watching me. Not the coffin, me. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he'd seen the phone glow in my hand. Laura's arm tightened around my shoulders. You okay? She whispered. I nodded once. A lie. The service ended. People drifted toward me in slow motion. Hugs, murmured condolences, damp cheeks against mine. I moved through them like a ghost. Someone pressed a tissue into my hand. Someone else told me David was in a better place. I smiled when I was supposed to, said thank you when I was supposed to, all while my phone burned a hole in my pocket. At the cars, Jake tugged my sleeve. Mom, you're shaking. I'm cold, I said.
Emily stared at me too long. You sure? Yes. We drove home in silence, rain drumming on the roof like fingernails. I kept my phone face down on my thigh the whole way. Every few minutes, I flipped it over, checked. Nothing. Back at the house, the reception was already in full swing. Casseroles on the counter, folding chairs in the living room, soft jazz playing from David's old Bluetooth speaker because someone thought music would help. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the closed toilet lid with my head in my hands. I opened the message again. I am still alive. Trust no one. I stared until the words stopped making sense. A prank? Some hacker who'd spoofed his number? A cruel kid from Jake's school who'd somehow gotten hold of David's old phone? But the timing, the exact moment I was standing over his coffin. And the word. David always said that when he was joking about his paranoid architect clients. Trust no one with your blueprints, babe. They'll steal your soul. My chest tightened. I typed again. If this is you, prove it. Tell me something only we know. Sent. Still nothing. I splashed water on my face, fixed my makeup, forced myself back out into the crowd. Laura met me in the hallway with a glass of wine. You need this, she said gently. I took it. Didn't drink. Mark was in the kitchen talking to the insurance agent on the phone, something about expediting the paperwork. $2 million. Enough to pay off the house, fund college, start over. He caught my eye and gave me a small, sad smile. I turned away. That night, after everyone left and the kids were finally asleep, I sat alone in our bedroom. David's side of the bed still smelled like him, cedar aftershave and the faint trace of coffee. I pulled his pillow to my chest and cried until my throat was raw. Then the phone buzzed again. Same number.
I opened it with dread already pooling in my stomach. Check the safe behind the bookshelf in my office. Code, our anniversary backward. Hurry, they're watching. My heart stopped. Our anniversary was June 12. 612 backward is 216. I knew there was no safe in his office, or at least I thought I knew. I stood up slowly, legs trembling, and glanced toward the hallway. The house was dark, silent, but suddenly it didn't feel empty. It felt watched. I slipped my feet into slippers and crept downstairs, heart slamming so hard I could taste it in my mouth. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning.
The house smelled like grief in casseroles. Chicken noodle, green bean with those crunchy fried onions, lasagna someone's aunt made from scratch. Every dish carried the same pitying note. Thought you could use something warm. I wanted to scream that nothing was warm anymore, that the only heat left was the rage slowly boiling under my skin. But I just nodded and thanked them, again and again. The reception dragged on for hours. People milled through the living room like ghosts at a party they didn't want to attend. They hugged me too long, patted my back too gently, whispered the same useless lines. He's in a better place. God needed another angel. If you need anything, just call. I smiled when I was supposed to, said thank you when I was supposed to. My face hurt from the effort. Emily floated through it all like she was on autopilot, refilling coffee cups, clearing plates, thanking people on my behalf. She hadn't cried in front of me, not once. Her eyes were red-rimmed, sure, but dry, controlled. I kept waiting for her to crack, to collapse into my arms like she did when she was little and the world felt too big. She didn't. Instead, she kept glancing at me, quick little looks, like she was checking to see if I was still holding it together, or maybe checking to see if I'd noticed something.
Jake disappeared early. One minute he was standing by the fireplace, pretending to listen to old Mr. Harlan from next door talk about the good old days. The next, he was gone. I found him later in his room, door cracked, headphones on, staring at his phone screen. The blue light carved shadows across his face. He didn't look up when I knocked softly, just muttered, "I'm fine, Mom," before I even asked. Laura stayed. Of course she did. My big sister, always the fixer. She bustled around the kitchen, wiping counters that were already clean, stacking Tupperware, asking if I wanted tea, coffee, wine, anything. Her voice was soft, soothing, the same tone she used when we were kids and I'd skinned my knee. "You don't have to do this alone, Sarah. Let me help." I let her. It was easier than fighting. By 9 o'clock, the last guest left. The house felt bigger without the crowd, echoey, cold. Rain still tapped against the windows like it had something to say. I locked the front door, turned off the porch light, and stood in the hallway listening to the quiet. That's when the weight of it really hit me. David wasn't coming home. Not tonight. Not ever. The thought punched the air out of my lungs. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. Our bedroom door was still half open from this morning. I hadn't closed it properly when we left for the cemetery. Inside, everything was exactly as he'd left it. His side of the bed rumpled, pillow dented, nightstand cluttered with his reading glasses, the dog-eared copy of The Power Broker he'd been rereading for the third time, a half-empty water glass with faint fingerprints on the side. I stood there for a long minute just staring, trying to memorize it all before grief blurred the edges. I walked to his closet. His scent hit me first. Cedar aftershave mixed with the faint trace of coffee and the outdoors. I pulled one of his flannel shorts off the hanger and buried my face in it. The fabric was soft from years of washing, worn at the elbows from leaning over drafting tables. I sank to the floor right there on the carpet, clutching the shirt like a lifeline, and let the sobs come. Quiet at first, then louder, ugly, the kind that hurt your throat and make your ribs ache. That's when my phone buzzed again. I'd left it on the nightstand. The screen lit up, casting a cold blue glow across the dark room. I crawled over, still on my knees, and picked it up. Same number. David's number. Check the safe behind the bookshelf in my office. Code, our anniversary backward. Hurry, they're watching. My breath caught. The shirt slipped from my hands. Our anniversary, June 12th. 612. Backward, 216. I knew his office like the back of my hand. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined one wall. Architecture books, blueprints rolled into tubes, old sketch pads from his college days. There was no safe. I would have noticed, wouldn't I? I sat there on the floor for what felt like forever, staring at the message. My mind raced through every possibility. A cruel prank, a hacker, someone who'd stolen his phone before the paramedics arrived. But who? And why now? Why at the funeral? Why with those exact words? Trust no one. Words David used to joke about when clients tried to cut corners or when contractors lowballed him. Trust no one, babe, he'd say with that crooked grin. They'll steal your blueprints and your soul. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, stood up, and checked the time. 1:47 a.m. The house was dead silent, kids asleep. Laura had taken the guest room downstairs. I slipped my feet into David's old slippers, too big but familiar, and padded down the hallway. The stairs creaked under my weight. I paused at the bottom, listening. Nothing. Just the refrigerator humming
in the rain.
His office door was closed. I turned the knob slowly, pushed it open. The room smelled like him too. Pencil shavings, old paper, the faint metallic tang of ink. Moonlight slanted through the blinds, striping the floor. I didn't turn on the light, too exposed. I crossed to the bookshelf. The middle section held his favorite reference books, thick volumes on Frank Lloyd Wright, modern sustainable design, seismic retrofitting. I started pulling them out one by one, stacking them on the desk. Nothing behind the first row, nothing behind the second. Then I felt it. The third shelf from the bottom had a slight give when I pressed. A panel, hidden. I pushed harder. It popped open with a soft click. Behind it, a small wall safe, matte black, digital keypad. I'd never seen it before in 20 years of marriage. How had I never seen it? My fingers trembled as I punched in 216. The lock beeped once, green light. It swung open. Inside, a black flash drive, a cheap burner phone still in its plastic, and a folded piece of paper, yellow legal pad, David's unmistakable slanted handwriting. I unfolded it with shaking hands. Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone but not dead. I had to disappear. The life insurance is the key. Don't trust Mark. Don't trust Laura. Don't even trust the kids if they act strange. Meet me at the old cabin in 3 days. Burn this after reading. I'm sorry. I love you. The paper slipped from my fingers and floated to the floor.
I stared at the safe like it might bite me. My pulse thundered in my ears. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. David, my steady, predictable, infuriatingly honest David, had faked his own death, written me a note like some spy thriller character. I grabbed the flash drive, the burner, the note, shoved them into my robe pocket, closed the safe, pushed the panel back, replaced the books as quietly as I could. Then I stood in the middle of the dark office, breathing hard, trying to decide what came next. Down the hall, a floorboard creaked. I froze. Someone was awake. I slipped out of the office, closed the door behind me, and hurried back upstairs. My heart wouldn't slow. Every shadow looked like eyes watching. Back in the bedroom, I locked the door, something we never did, and sat on the edge of the bed with the note clutched in my fist. I read it again and again. Don't trust Mark. Don't trust Laura. Don't even trust the kids if they act strange. My own family, my sister, my brother-in-law, my children. I thought about the way Emily had watched me at the reception, the way Jake hid in his room with his phone, the way Laura never left my side. I thought about the $2 million waiting to be claimed, and suddenly the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a cage. I slipped the note under the mattress, old hiding spot from when the kids were little and we'd stash Christmas presents. Then I lay down, fully clothed, eyes wide open in the dark. Sleep didn't come. Neither did answers. But one thing was clear. Denial was over. The truth, whatever twisted version of it existed, was just beginning to claw its way out. Morning came too soon. Gray light leaked through the bedroom curtains like it was apologizing for showing up. I hadn't slept. Not really. I'd lain there all night with David's note hidden under the mattress, the flash drive tucked inside my sock drawer behind a stack of old scarves, the burner phone powered off and wrapped in a towel in the back of the linen closet. Every creak of the house made me sit up, heart racing, convinced someone was in the hallway listening.
Nothing. I took a sip, burned my tongue, didn't care. Just, he's been really helpful. Emily stared at me a beat too long. He's family. Right. She went back to her coffee. I watched her thumbs scroll her phone under the table, quick, nervous swipes. Then she locked the screen and set it face down. I'd seen Jake do the same thing last night, like they were hiding something, or waiting for something. Mark showed up at 9:30 with a tray of Starbucks and a manila folder thick with papers. He looked polished, Navy blazer, crisp shirt, the kind of put together that made you feel sloppy just looking at him. Brought reinforcements, he said, setting the tray down. Figured you could use caffeine that isn't funeral grade. I forced a smile. Thanks. He slid the folder toward me. Death certificate came through faster than expected. Coroner signed off yesterday. Insurance company's already asking for next steps. $2 million, Sarah. It'll change everything for the kids. College funds, mortgage paid off, maybe even a fresh start for you. His voice was gentle, reasonable, concerned, but something in the way he said fresh start made my skin crawl, like he was already picturing me spending it, or maybe picturing himself helping me spend it. I opened the folder. Official documents. David's name in bold type. Cause of death, acute myocardial infarction. Time, 7:42 a.m. I stared at the date. 2 days ago. It felt like a lifetime.
Mark leaned in. I can take this downtown today if you want. Get the ball rolling. No, I said too quickly. His eyebrows lifted. I softened my tone. I mean, I want to look it over first. Make sure everything's right. Of course. He smiled that sad, understanding smile. Take your time. Just let me know. He stayed for an hour, talking about David's projects, reminiscing about childhood stories I'd heard 100 times. Every time he mentioned money or the future, my stomach twisted tighter. When he finally left, hugging me too long at the door, I locked it behind him and leaned against it, breathing hard. I went straight to the office. Laptop open. Incognito mode. Paranoid, maybe, but I wasn't taking chances. I plugged in the flash drive. It showed up as DW backup. Generic, innocent looking. Folders loaded slowly. Bank statements first. Transfers. Small at first, then bigger. Offshore accounts in the Caymans. Wire instructions to something called Viper Holdings. Dates going back 18 months. David's company account. His personal account. Money moving out in chunks that added up to almost $500,000 before it stopped. Emails next. Encrypted threads between DW and Viper. Coded language. Stage 1 complete. Policy in place. Monitor ingestion schedule. Slow drip. No red flags. Payout projected Q4. Clean exit. 1 attachment. A photo. Timestamped 3 days after David's death. Grainy. Taken from a distance. A man in a gray hoodie walking down a rainy street in Portland. Hood up, head down. But the walk, the slight hitch in his left knee from that old skiing accident, was unmistakable. David. My hand flew to my mouth. I stumbled to the bathroom and vomited into the toilet until my stomach was empty and my throat burned. I rinsed my mouth, splashed water on my face, stared at my reflection. Eyes hollow, skin pale. I looked like a ghost already.
Back at the laptop, I kept going. Another file. Evidence.mp4. I hesitated, then clicked. Hidden camera footage. Our kitchen. Timestamped 6 weeks ago. Morning light through the window. David at the table reading the paper. Laura at the counter, back to the camera, stirring his coffee. She glances over her shoulder once, twice, then reaches into her pocket, pulls out a small brown vial, unscrews it, tips a few drops into the mug, stirs, taste tests with her pinky, stirs again, sets it in front of him with a smile. He thanks her, takes a sip. The video looped back to the start. I watched it 3 times. Each time, my blood ran colder. Laura, my sister, poisoning my husband. I slammed the laptop shut, stood up too fast. The room spun. I gripped the desk until it steadied. Footsteps on the stairs. Emily's voice. "Mom, you okay? I heard something." I wiped my face. "Fine, just dropped a book." She appeared in the doorway. "You sure? You look sick." "I'm fine." My voice cracked on the last word. She stepped closer. "Mom, I said I'm fine." Sharper than I meant. She flinched. "Sorry," she muttered. "Just worried." She left. Door clicked shut.
I sank into David's chair. My hands shook so badly I couldn't hold the mug. I thought about the kids, Emily's quick glances, Jake's hidden phone, the way they'd both asked about the insurance money more than once. For school, they said. For the future. I thought about Mark's eager offer to handle the paperwork. I thought about Laura downstairs right now, humming while she loaded the dishwasher like nothing had changed. My phone buzzed on the desk, the real one this time, Laura's name on the screen. Hey, I'm heading to the store. Need anything? Milk? Eggs? Wine? You name it. I stared at the message, then typed back. No thanks, I'm good. I hit send, then powered off my phone. I couldn't trust anyone. Not my sister, not my kids, not even the house around me. Because if David was right, if he was alive, hiding, watching, then the people I loved most weren't grieving. They were waiting for the money, for the payout, for me to break. I stood up slowly, walked to the window, looked out at the rain-soaked street. A car idled across the way, dark sedan, tinted windows. It sat there for a long minute, then pulled away. I didn't know who was in it, but I knew they weren't random. The first doubt had cracked open, and everything inside was spilling out. The rest of that day felt like walking through fog, thick, suffocating, every step uncertain. I moved around the house like a stranger in my own life, touching doorknobs, opening drawers, looking for anything that didn't belong, anything that might explain the safe, the note, the video. My fingers trembled every time I reached for something. I kept replaying the footage in my head, Laura's careful glance over her shoulder, the vial tipping, the casual way she stirred the coffee like it was sugar. My sister, the woman who braided my hair when we were kids, who drove me to the ER the night I miscarried our first pregnancy, who cried harder than I did at our mother's funeral. How could that same woman poison my husband? I started watching everyone, not obviously, nothing dramatic like hiding behind doors, but small things. The way their eyes moved when they thought I wasn't looking, the pauses before they answered questions, the silences that stretched too long. Jake came home from school around 4. He dropped his backpack by the door with the usual thud, kicked off his sneakers, headed straight for the fridge. Normal, routine. Except he didn't say hi, didn't ask how I was, just grabbed a soda, cracked it open, and disappeared upstairs without a word. I followed him partway up the stairs, quiet on stocking feet, and paused outside his door. It was cracked an inch. I heard the faint tap, tap, tap of thumbs on a screen. Fast, urgent. Then silence. Then more tapping. A soft exhale, like relief. I backed away before he could catch me. Downstairs, Emily was on the couch scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I walked in. Hey, you eat anything today? Not hungry. You should try. There's still lasagna. I'm good. She nodded, went back to her screen, but her thumb kept hovering, not really scrolling, like she was waiting for a notification. I sat across from her in the armchair, pretending to flip through a magazine I'd grabbed off the coffee table. Her phone buzzed once. She glanced at it, typed quickly, locked the screen, set it face down, again. I couldn't take it anymore. Who are you texting? She blinked. Just friends from school. About Dad? Mostly. Her voice was too even, too practiced. I let it drop. For now. Laura came back from the store around 5 with grocery bags and a forced brightness. Got your favorite ice cream? Mint chip? Thought it might help. She unpacked everything methodically, humming under her breath. That same old tune our mom used to sing while cooking. It used to comfort me. Now it felt like nails on a chalkboard. She turned to me while putting away the milk. You okay? You've been quiet all day. Just tired. You sure? You look pale. I'm fine, Laura. She studied me a second longer than necessary, then smiled. Okay, but if you need to talk, I'm here. Always. I nodded. Didn't trust myself to speak. That night, after dinner,
takeout pizza nobody really ate. The kids retreated to their rooms. Laura suggested a movie. I said I had a headache. She hugged me goodnight, her arms lingering. Sleep well, sis. Things will get better.
I waited until the house went quiet. 11:30. Lights off downstairs. I crept back to the office, locked the door behind me, and powered on the laptop again. The flash drive was still in my pocket like a live grenade. I opened the video folder. There were more clips, not just the kitchen one from 3 months ago, Mark in our garage, handing Laura a small brown bottle. No sound, but his lips moved clearly. Just a little at a time. He won't taste it. She nodded, tucked it into her purse. Another, Jake in the hallway, whispering into his phone. Yeah, it's working. He's been tired lately. Mom hasn't noticed yet. My stomach lurched. Emily in her room, different angle, maybe a hidden camera in the vent, pacing, voice low. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. If Dad finds out, the footage cut off.
I sat back, numb. My kids, my own children, involved or just overhearing, manipulated, blackmailed? I didn't know, but the doubt was spreading like ink in water, staining everything. Another text came through on the burner phone I'd kept hidden in my nightstand. I turned it on only long enough to check. Same number. They poisoned me slowly, rat poison in my coffee for months. The heart attack was staged. Proof on drive, file evidence.mp4. More coming. Stay sharp. They're moving faster now. I clicked the file again, same kitchen clip, but this time I noticed something I'd missed before. A small calendar on the fridge in the background, the date circled in red, the day David died. I couldn't breathe.
I packed a small go-back that night, just the essentials. Passport, some cash from the safe. David had kept a few thousand in there for emergencies. The flash drive, the burner, the note. I hid it in the trunk of my car, under the spare tire. If anyone asked, I was going for a drive to clear my head tomorrow. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. Every pipe groan, every shift of the foundation felt like footsteps. At one point, I swore I heard whispering downstairs, low, urgent. But when I cracked the bedroom door, nothing, just silence. Morning came gray and heavy, rain again. Laura was already in the kitchen making breakfast. Pancakes, David's favorite. She smiled when I came down. Thought we could all eat together. Family time. Emily and Jake shuffled in, sleepy-eyed. They sat, we ate in near silence. Forks on plates, coffee sipped. I watched their faces. Jake kept glancing at his phone under the table. Emily stared at her plate like it held answers. Laura broke the quiet. I was thinking, maybe you should come stay with me in Portland for a while. Get out of this house. Too many memories.
I'm okay here. It might help. Fresh air, change of scenery. I said I'm okay. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. Her skin was warm, too warm. Just think about it. I pulled my hand back slowly. I will. After breakfast, the kids left for school. Laura said she had errands. She hugged me again, longer this time. Call me if you need anything at all. The door closed behind her. I waited 5 minutes. Then I went to the garage. My car was still there. I popped the trunk. The go bag was untouched. But on the passenger seat, something new. A single white rose, like the one I'd dropped at the funeral. No note, no explanation.
Just the flower. Petals perfect, stem wrapped in green tape. I stared at it for a long minute. Then I picked it up. The thorns picked my thumb. Blood welled up. I didn't wipe it away. I just stood there in the dim garage, holding the rose, watching the blood drip onto the concrete. Someone had been in my car. Someone who knew exactly what flower I'd carried to my husband's grave. Someone who wanted me to know they were close. I dropped the rose, backed out of the garage, closed the door, locked it. Then I went inside, sat at the kitchen table, and waited for the next text, because I knew it was coming. And when it did,
I wouldn't be surprised anymore. I'd be ready.
3 days. That's what the note said. 3 days until I met him. If he was even real, if this wasn't some elaborate hallucination born from grief and too little sleep. I spent those days moving like a shadow through my own house, careful not to look anyone in the eye too long, careful not to let my hand shake when I poured coffee or answered the door. I told Laura I needed space. She argued at first. You shouldn't be alone right now, Sarah. But I held firm. I'm going to the cabin for a couple nights, just to breathe. The kids will be fine. They're staying with friends. She hugged me goodbye like she was saying farewell to a patient, not a sister. Her arms felt colder than usual. Emily and Jake bought the story too easily. Take your time, Mom, Emily said, voice soft. We'll hold down the fort. Jake just nodded, eyes on his phone. No questions, no worry. That hurt more than anything.
I left at dawn on the 3rd day. The sky was still bruised purple when I backed the SUV out of the driveway. I took the back roads north toward the Cascades, 2-lane highways flanked by dripping evergreens, fog curling off the pavement like smoke. No music, just the hum of tires and the occasional crackle of the radio picking up static. My go bag sat on the passenger seat. Clothes, cash, the flash drive, the burner phone, David's note folded small enough to fit in my palm. I checked the rearview mirror every few minutes. No one followed, or if they did, they were good at it. The cabin was 40 miles past the last gas station, down a gravel road that turned to dirt, then to nothing but ruts and pine needles. We'd bought it 15 years ago as a weekend escape. Nothing fancy, just a one-room A-frame with a loft bedroom, wood stove, and a view of the lake that made you forget the city existed. David had designed the place himself. Simple lines, big windows, a porch that wrapped around 3 sides. We used to bring the kids here every summer. Campfires, fishing, s'mores. Now it felt like the edge of the world. I pulled up just after noon. The place looked exactly as we'd left it last spring. Shutters closed, pine cones piled on the steps, the American flag David had hung, drooping wet from the recent rain. I killed the engine and sat there for a long minute, listening. Birds, wind in the trees, nothing else.
Inside smelled like dust and cedar. I opened windows to let the air move, started a fire in the stove, even though it wasn't that cold. Habit. Then I waited. Hours passed. I paced, made tea I didn't drink, checked the burner phone every 10 minutes. No signal most of the time, but when it flickered to 1 bar, no new messages. I walked the perimeter of the cabin twice, scanning the trees for movement. Nothing. Just shadows lengthening as the sun dropped behind the ridge. By midnight, I was starting to doubt everything. Maybe the note was a forgery. Maybe David really was gone. Maybe I'd driven 2 hours into the wilderness chasing a ghost because I couldn't face the emptiness back home. I sat on the porch steps, wrapped in one of his old flannel jackets, staring at the black mirror of the lake. The cold seeped through my jeans. I told myself I'd wait until dawn, then drive back and face whatever came next. Police, maybe, or a therapist. Something sane. Headlights swept through the trees at 12:17 a.m., a single beam, low and slow, cutting across the gravel. My heart slammed into my ribs. I stood up, hand slipping into my pocket where I'd tucked the small canister of pepper spray I'd bought on the way up. The vehicle, some kind of dark SUV, rolled to a stop 20 yards away. Engine cut. Lights off. Silence. A door opened. Closed. Footsteps on gravel. Slow. Deliberate. A figure emerged from the darkness, hood up, shoulders hunched against the chill, limping slightly on the left leg. That limp. The one from the ski accident in Tahoe 10 years ago, when he'd torn his ACL and refused physical therapy until I dragged him to appointments. David. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, pulled back the hood. It was him. Thinner, beard gone wild, eyes sunken, hunted, but him. Sarah, he whispered. I couldn't move at first. My legs felt locked. Then I was running, Down the steps, across the wet grass, crashing into him so hard we both stumbled. His arms wrapped around me, tight, desperate. He smelled like pine and sweat and something metallic, like fear. I buried my face in his jacket and sobbed, ugly, choking sobs that hurt coming out. "I'm sorry," he kept saying into my hair. "I'm so sorry." We stood like that for minutes, maybe longer. Rain started again, soft at first, then harder. He pulled me inside, locked the door, drew the curtains. The fire had died to embers. He threw on more wood until the room glowed orange. We sat on the rug in front of the stove. He took my hands in his, cold hands, calloused, trembling a little. "You came," he said, like he hadn't been sure I would. I almost didn't. My voice cracked. I thought maybe I was losing my mind. He shook his head. "You're not. I'm here. I'm alive."
I'm okay here. It might help. Fresh air. Change of scenery. I said I'm okay. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. Her skin was warm. Too warm. Just think about it. I pulled my hand back slowly. I will. After breakfast, the kids left for school. Laura said she had errands. She hugged me again, longer this time. Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. The door closed behind her. I waited 5 minutes. Then I went to the garage. My car was still there. I popped the trunk. The go bag was untouched. But on the passenger seat, something new. A single white rose, like the one I dropped at the funeral. No note, no explanation.
He nodded. I had a friend, private investigator, old college buddy. He helped. We used a John Doe from the morgue, similar build, age, switched records. I went underground, gathered evidence, hid, waited until the funeral to reach out. I needed you to see the body go in the ground, so no one would question it later. I stared into the fire. You let me grieve. You let me plan your funeral. You let the kids think you were dead. I had to. If they suspected I was alive before the payout, they'd have come after you, after the kids. I needed time. Tears burned my eyes again. Time for what? To finish it. I have recordings, bank records, the hidden cameras I installed last year, enough to put them away for life. But I needed you safe first. That's why the cabin. Neutral ground. No cameras. No phones. Just us. I looked at him. Really looked. The man I'd loved for half my life. The father of my children. The stranger who'd come back from the dead. What now? I asked. He reached for my hand again. We go back. Together. We end this. But we do it carefully. They can't know I'm alive until we have them cornered. I nodded slowly. The fire popped. Outside, rain hammered the roof. For the first time in days, I didn't feel alone. But I also knew the hardest part wasn't behind us. It was waiting at home, in the dark, with the people we trusted most.
We couldn't stay at the cabin forever. 2 days turned into 2.5, huddled by the wood stove, whispering plans like teenagers plotting a heist. David laid it all out, the recordings he'd made over months, hidden mics in the living room, garage, even the kids' rooms, the bank statements showing Mark's offshore transfers, the emails between him and Laura that read like a crime novel. Phase 2, accelerate dosage. Payout window opens in 90 days. Kids are compliant. Keep dangling the college carrot. David had timestamps, metadata, everything a prosecutor could dream of. He'd even recorded a confession from Mark, drunk one night after poker, slurring about how the old man was too stubborn to just die already. But we need them to think we're still in the dark, David said, voice low. One wrong move and they bolt. Or worse, they come after us. We go back quiet, watch, wait for them to make a play for the insurance money. Then we drop the hammer. I nodded, but my stomach was a knot. And the kids. He looked away, into the fire. We don't know yet. Maybe they're just pawns. Maybe they're deeper. We'll see.
We left at dusk on the third night, David drove a beat-up pickup he'd stashed in a logging lot 10 miles away, plates swapped, no registration in his name. I followed in my SUV, headlights off until we hit the highway. We parked separately 2 blocks from the house, met in the alley behind the neighbor's garage. He wore a baseball cap low, hoodie up, collar turned against the drizzle. I barely recognized him in the streetlight glow. "We watch from across the street," he said. "I planted bugs months ago. Living room, kitchen, master bedroom. Battery lasts another week. We listen, then we decide." I swallowed. "Okay." We slipped through the side yard of the empty house next door, foreclosure signs still in the lawn, and crouched behind the hedge. From there, we could see our front windows lit up like a stage. The living room curtains were half open. Shadows moved inside. David handed me one earbud. He took the other. He pulled a small receiver from his pocket, thumbed it on, static hissed, then cleared.
Voices. Clear. Too clear. Emily first. Sharp. Angry. Can't believe you let her go up there alone. What if she figures it out? Jake's voice. Lower. Defensive. She said she needed space. What was I supposed to do? Tie her down? A third voice. Mark. Smooth. Impatient. Relax. She's grieving. People do stupid things when they're grieving. She'll come back tomorrow, sign the papers, and we process the claim. 2 million splits 4 ways. Clean. Laura laughed. Cold. Short. 4 ways? You're dreaming. The kids get their cut for college, sure, but the bulk is ours. We did the work. Emily cut in. We did plenty. I kept her distracted. Jake deleted the search history on her laptop when she started asking about offshore accounts. We earned it. My breath caught. David's hand found mine in the dark, squeezed hard. Jake again. But if Dad's really, gone for good, why does it feel so wrong? Because you're soft, Laura snapped. He was going to cut Mark out of the company anyway. We just sped things up. Mercy killing, basically. Mark chuckled. Exactly. And Sarah, she's fragile right now. If she starts asking too many questions, we help her along. Little more of the same stuff in her tea. She'll fade. Natural causes. Grief does that to people.
Emily's voice wavered. I don't know about that part. Poisoning Mom, that's different. Different how? Laura asked. You were fine slipping it into his coffee every morning for 3 months. That was Dad. He was already sick. Mom's healthy. She's Mom. Silence stretched. Then Mark. You want your tuition paid or not? Yale doesn't give scholarships to kids with felon parents. Think about it. Jake muttered something I couldn't catch. Laura's tongue softened, coaxing now. Look, we're not monsters. We're survivors. Your father was going to leave us all high and dry with his ethical standards. We fixed it. Now we finish it. Sarah comes home tomorrow. We act normal. She signs. We get the money. We disappear. New names, new lives. You two can still have college. We can all have peace. Emily again, quieter. She looked at me funny this morning, like she knew something. She doesn't know anything, Mark said. She's in shock. Keep her that way. The conversation shifted. Logistics, timelines, who would meet the insurance adjuster. I couldn't listen anymore. My ears rang, my vision blurred with tears I didn't want to shed. David pulled the earbud out, turned off the receiver. His face in the dim light was stone. They're all in. I shook my head. The kids, they're just scared, manipulated. Maybe. His voice was flat. But they chose. They chose money over us. We sat there in the wet grass for another hour, listening to fragments, laughter over pizza delivery, plans for a family meeting tomorrow night, casual talk about splitting the cash. Every word carved deeper. Finally, David whispered, We can't go in yet. They'll panic, destroy evidence. We need one more piece, the insurance forms with Sarah's signature. If they forge it, that's fraud on top of everything else, ironclad. I wiped my face. So what now? We wait. One more day. Let them think they're winning. We crept back to the vehicles. David kissed my forehead, quick, fierce. Stay at the motel on 405, room 14. I'll call when it's time. I drove away first. In the rear view, his silhouette stood under the street lamp until I turned the corner.
Back at the cheap motel, I locked the door, chained it, wedged a chair under the knob. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, the real one, not the burner. No messages from the kids, no check-ins, nothing. I thought about the little girl who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms, whispering, "Mommy, make the noise stop." The boy who once drew me a card that said "World's Best Mom" in crayon when I had the flu. Now they were talking about poisoning me. For money. For college. For a new life.
I curled into a ball on the thin comforter and cried until my throat was raw. Outside, rain hammered the roof like it had something to prove. Inside, the nightmare kept growing. Because the worst betrayal isn't from enemies. It's from the people you raised. The ones you die for. The ones who might just kill you instead. The next morning broke gray and mean. Rain still tapping the motel window had unfinished business. I hadn't slept. David called at 6:03 a.m. from a burner, voice low, clipped. "They're moving today. Insurance adjusters coming at noon. They want your signature on the claim forms. We hit them at dawn, before they scatter. Meet me at the house, back alley. Bring nothing but yourself. No phone, no car. Walk the last block." I didn't argue. I left the motel key on the dresser, slipped out the side exit, hood up against the drizzle. The streets were empty, except for delivery trucks and the occasional jogger who didn't glance twice. My heart hammered the whole way. 3 miles of wet sidewalks, wet shoes, wet fear. Every passing car made me flinch. Every shadow looked like Mark's silhouette. David was waiting in the alley behind our house. Same beat-up pickup idling. He'd changed. Black hoodie, dark jeans, a baseball cap pulled low. In his right hand, a compact pistol I'd never seen before. He must have seen my face change because he said quick, "It's just insurance. I won't use it unless they force me, but we're not walking in blind." I nodded once. Words wouldn't come. He tucked the gun into his waistband, pulled me close for a second. Brief, fierce. "Stay behind me. If it goes south, run. Don't look back." We slipped through the neighbor's yard again. Same hedge, same wet grass. The house lights were on, kitchen glow spilling into the backyard. Voices carried through the cracked window. Familiar voices. My family. David crouched low, pulled me down beside him. We listened. "Mark. The adjuster's early. He wants to see the death certificate in person. Sarah should be here any minute."
We left at dusk on the third night. David drove a beat-up pickup he'd stashed in a logging lot 10 miles away, plates swapped, no registration in his name. I followed in my SUV, headlights off until we hit the highway. We parked separately 2 blocks from the house, met in the alley behind the neighbor's garage. He wore a baseball cap low, hoodie up, collar turned against the drizzle. I barely recognized him in the streetlight glow. "We watch from across the street," he said. "I planted bugs months ago. Living room, kitchen, master bedroom. Battery lasts another week. We listen, then we decide." I swallowed. "Okay." We slipped through the side yard of the empty house next door, foreclosure signs still in the lawn, and crouched behind the hedge. From there, we could see our front windows lit up like a stage. The living room curtains were half open. Shadows moved inside. David handed me one earbud. He took the other. He pulled a small receiver from his pocket, thumbed it on, static hissed, then cleared.
Mark at the table, papers spread out. Laura pouring coffee. Emily leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Jake scrolling his phone. Time froze. Then Emily saw us first. Her mug hit the floor, shattered. "Mom?" Jake spun. "Holy!" Laura dropped the pot. Coffee splashed across the tile. Mark stood so fast his chair tipped. "What the?" David stepped forward, gun raised, not pointed, but visible. Nobody move. Silence, thick, electric. Mark's eyes locked on David. Color drained from his face. You're supposed to be dead." "I was never dead," David said, voice calm, cold, just waiting. Laura's hand went to her mouth. "David? Oh, God." Emily started crying, soft, broken sounds. Jake backed up until he hit the cabinets. "Dad?" I stepped out from behind David. My voice came out steadier than I felt.
I have everything. The flash drive, the videos, the bank transfers, the poison, the emails, the conversations you just had, recorded, right now.
Mark's eyes darted to the door, calculating escape. Don't, David said. Police are on their way. Anonymous tip. They'll be here in 5 minutes. Laura laughed, hysterical, jagged. You think this ends here? You think you can just walk back in and— Shut up, I snapped. The words surprised me. Everyone looked at me. You poisoned him. You poisoned my husband. You talked about poisoning me, my own sister, my kids, for money. Emily sobbed harder. Mom, I didn't want— You deleted my search history, I said, staring at her. You kept me distracted. You let them do it. Jake's voice cracked. We were scared. Mark said if we didn't help, he'd ruin us, ruin you. The company was failing anyway. Stop, David cut in. No excuses. You chose. Mark lunged then, fast, desperate, toward David, toward the gun. David step-sided, caught him with a shoulder, slammed him against the wall. The gun stayed steady. Mark grunted, slid down, nose bleeding.
Laura screamed, wordless, furious. She grabbed a knife from the block on the counter. I moved without thinking. I tackled her. We hit the floor hard. Coffee, broken glass, my elbow cracking against tile. She fought. Nails, elbows, teeth. I pinned her wrists. Stop, just stop. Sirens in the distance, close now. Emily dropped to her knees beside us, crying. Mom, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Jake stood frozen, tears streaming. Dad, we didn't mean— David kept the gun on Mark, who was groaning on the floor. You meant enough, he said quietly. Blue and red lights flashed through the windows. Tires screeched outside. Doors slammed, boots on the porch. Police, open the door. David lowered the gun, placed it carefully on the table, raised his hands. In here, we're unarmed now. The front door burst open. Officers flooded in, guns drawn, voices shouting commands. Hands where we can see them. Everyone complied. I stayed on the floor, straddling Laura, who had gone limp, sobbing into the tile. An officer pulled me off gently. Ma'am, step back. I did. They cuffed Mark first. He didn't resist. Then Laura. She spat curses until they gagged her with procedure. Emily and Jake went willingly, heads down, tears everywhere. One officer turned to David. Sir, you're supposed to be deceased. David gave a tired smile. Long story. I've got evidence, lots of it. They took us all to the station separately. I sat in a cold interview room for hours, gave my statement, handed over the flash drive, the burner, the note. They listened. They believed. Eventually. By noon, the adjuster had been turned away. The insurance company was notified. The payout frozen. Mark and Laura were charged that afternoon. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, embezzlement. The kids, accessories after the fact, conspiracy to defraud. But the DA said they'd likely get probation, therapy, restitution. They were young, manipulated, cooperative now. I didn't feel relief. Just hollow. David waited for me outside the station when they released me. No hug this time. Just standing there, hands in pockets, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. They're processing the paperwork, he said. I am officially alive again. I nodded. We walked to his truck in silence. I stopped before getting in. The kids, they're going to need us. He looked at me, really looked. Do we still have in us? I thought about it. The poison, the lies, the money, the fear. I don't know, I said honestly, but we're not done yet. He nodded once. We drove away from the station, past the flashing lights, past the neighbors staring from porches. The confrontation was over, but the nightmare, it was just changing shape. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant, sharp, institutional, the kind of place that makes you feel small even when you're innocent. I sat in a hard plastic chair in the hallway for what felt like hours, while detectives shuttled between rooms. David was in one, Mark in another, Laura in a third.
Emily and Jake together in a fourth, separate from the adults, because the DA wanted to make sure no one coached them. I kept my hands clasped tight in my lap so no one would see them shake. Every time a door opened, I looked up, hoping for news, dreading it at the same time. A female detective, mid-40s, short brown hair, no nonsense, finally came for me. Her name tag read Ramirez. She led me to a small interview room with a one-way mirror and a digital recorder. "Mrs. Whitaker," she said, sliding a bottle of water across the table. "We've reviewed the flash drive, the videos, the bank records, your husband's statement. It's substantial. We're moving fast on this." I nodded. My throat was too dry to speak at first. I cracked the water, took a sip. "What happens now?" She leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Mark and Laura are in custody. Attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. The list is long. They're not talking yet, but we've got enough without confessions. The hidden cameras you provided? Gold. Time-stamped, clear audio. We've already pulled warrants for their phones, computers, safe deposit boxes." "And my kids?" Ramirez paused. "Emily and Jake are cooperating. They're scared. They're young. They've given detailed statements. How Mark approached them about the company troubles, how Laura convinced them the medicine was just to make your husband sleep better at first. They say they didn't know about the rat poison until it was too late. They're claiming coercion, fear of retaliation. The DA is inclined to believe them. They're looking at accessory charges, maybe conspiracy to defraud the insurance company. Probation is likely, mandatory counseling, restitution if any money changed hands. No jail time unless something new comes up." I exhaled slowly. Relief mixed with something darker. Guilt, maybe? Or just exhaustion. "They talked about poisoning me." Ramirez's expression softened to fraction. "They did, and they're ashamed of it now. Emily broke down when she admitted it. Said she never would have gone through with it. Jake said the same. They're asking for you. Want to see you." I shook my head. "Not yet." She didn't push. Back in the hallway, David waited. He looked wrecked, eyes red, shoulders slumped. We didn't speak at first, just sat side by side on the bench, knees touching. After a while, he said, "They're processing my status. I'm officially alive again. Social Security, DMV, the whole system. They're even backdating the death certificate revocation. Weird feeling." I stared at the scuffed linoleum. "Yeah, weird." He reached for my hand. I let him take it. His fingers were cold. Hours later, around 3 in the afternoon, they let us go. No charges against either of us. The insurance company had been notified. The claim was frozen pending investigation. $2 million that would never arrive. Good. I didn't want it anyway. Blood money. We drove home in separate cars, David in his truck, me in the SUV. The house looked the same from the outside. Tidy lawn, porch light on timer, curtains half drawn. But inside it felt different. Hollow, like the walls remembered everything. We didn't go in right away. We sat on the front steps in the fading light. Rain had stopped. The air smelled clean for once. David spoke first. Mark confessed in interrogation, couldn't hold it together. Said the gambling started small, poker nights, sports bets. Then it snowballed. He owed people, dangerous people. He thought skimming from the company would fix it. When I caught on, he panicked. Laura, she hated how perfect our life looked. Jealousy turned into resentment. They planned it together. Slow poison, natural-looking death, split the insurance, new start somewhere warm. The kids were supposed to be the innocent bystanders, get college paid for, keep quiet. But they got pulled in deeper than anyone planned. I stared at the wet sidewalk. Laura laughed when they talked about killing me. David's voice cracked. I know. We sat in silence until the streetlights came on. The next few days blurred. Detectives came and went. Forensics dusted for prints, took samples from the coffee mugs still in the sink. The kids were released to a relative, Laura's ex-husband in Tacoma, pending hearings. They weren't allowed back in the house yet. Evidence, or maybe just mercy. I packed their rooms myself. Emily's posters, Jake's gaming setup, the photos on the walls, smiling faces from vacations, birthdays, graduations. I put everything in boxes, labeled them carefully. Not throwing away, just storing, for later, if there was a later. David stayed at a hotel downtown,
Said he needed space. I didn't argue. We talked on the phone every night. Short calls, careful words. No promises, no plans. Just checking in. Laura's confession came on the 4th day. Full. Detailed. She didn't cry on the recording. She spoke like she was reading a grocery list. Admitted buying the rat poison online. Mixing it in stages, increasing doses. Said David deserved it for being selfish with the money. Said the kids were weak links, but useful. Said she never planned to hurt me until I started asking questions. Then she adjusted the plan. Hearing it on the news, local station, somber anchor, felt surreal. My sister's face on screen. Mugshot. No makeup. Eyes empty.
Mark's mugshot followed. He looked smaller than I remembered. The kids weren't named publicly, minors, cooperating witnesses, but the neighborhood knew. Whispers at the grocery store, stares in the driveway. I stopped going out. Therapy started the next week, separate sessions for me and David, then joined. The counselor was kind, patient. She didn't rush us. She just listened while we unraveled. I cried a lot. David stared at the floor a lot. One night, alone in the house, I found an old photo album in the attic. Us at the cabin years ago. Kids small, David's arm around me, everyone smiling. I sat on the dusty floor and flipped pages until my eyes burned. The nightmare didn't end with arrests. It didn't end with confessions. It lingered in the quiet moments, in the empty bedrooms, in the way I still checked my phone every time it buzzed, half expecting another message from a dead man. David moved back in after 2 weeks. Not to the master bedroom, not yet. Guest room. We cooked dinner together, watched TV, talked about normal things, avoided the big ones. Emily wrote letters, long, handwritten, mailed from Tacoma. Apologies, explanations, love. Jake called once a week, voice small, asking if we hated them. We didn't.
But forgiveness wasn't a switch. It was slow, painful, uneven. The house sold eventually. Too many memories. We bought a small place in a new town, anonymous suburb, no history. New names for the mail, new routines. David still wakes up sometimes, gasping, reaching for a gun that isn't there. I still freeze when someone stirs coffee too long. The nightmare unraveled, thread by thread. But some threads never fully come loose. They just get tucked away, hidden, waiting for the next tug. Months passed like pages in a book I didn't want to reread. We moved in early spring. New town, new state, new names on the mailbox, even if the legal one stayed the same. A modest 2-story in a quiet Portland suburb, far enough from Seattle that no one recognized us at the grocery store. The house had white siding, a small front porch with hanging baskets I never watered, and a backyard that backed onto woods instead of neighbors. No history here. No ghosts in the walls. At least, not the same ones.
David and I slept in separate rooms for the first 6 weeks. Not out of anger, more like caution. We were both still raw, still waking up at 3 a.m., reaching for a phone that might buzz with another impossible message. He took the guest room downstairs. I stayed upstairs in the master, door locked out of habit. Some nights I heard him pacing below me, floorboards creaking like confessions. Other nights I paced too. We never met in the hallway. We just let the silence do its work. Therapy was twice a week, individual first, then couples. The counselor, Dr. Ellis, mid-50s, soft voice, no judgment, never pushed us to forgive and forget. She just asked questions that made us sit with the truth longer than we wanted to. "What does trust look like now?" she asked one Tuesday. I didn't have an answer. David stared at his hands. "Smaller," he said finally. "It looks smaller." We started small rituals to fill the quiet. Coffee together every morning, no conversation, just sitting at the kitchen table watching the rain streak the windows. He cooked dinner most nights, simple things, grilled chicken, pasta, stir-fry. I did dishes. We watched true crime documentaries on Netflix, the irony not lost on either of us. Sometimes we laughed at how predictable the twists were. Sometimes we turned it off halfway through and sat in silence. The kids were the hardest part.
Emily's letters came every 2 weeks. Long, handwritten on college-ruled paper, postmarked from Tacoma. She wrote about therapy, about guilt that still woke her up crying,
about how she'd started volunteering at an animal shelter because taking care of something else helps. She never asked for forgiveness outright. She just said, "I miss you, and I'm trying to be better." I read each one twice, once crying, once dry-eyed, then tucked them into a shoebox in the closet. I wrote back, short replies at first, then longer. I told her about the new house, the woods behind us, the way the deer sometimes came right up to the fence. I didn't say, "I forgive you." Not yet, but I signed every letter. Love, Mom. Jake called on Sundays. The first few times he barely spoke, voice thick, words stumbling. "Hey. Yeah, I'm okay." After a month, he started talking more about school, about a girl he liked, about how he'd joined the track team because running helped him think. One Sunday, he said, "I dream about Dad sometimes. Not the funeral, just normal stuff. Him teaching me to drive." I listened without interrupting. When he finished, I said, "He dreams about you too." It was the closest we came to bridging the gap. They came for a supervised visit in July. Court-ordered, neutral location, social worker present. A park halfway between Tacoma and Portland. Picnic tables, ducks on the pond. We brought sandwiches, chips, bottled water. Emily hugged me first, tight, trembling. Jake hung back until David opened his arms. Then he crashed into him like he was 8 again. We sat for 3 hours, talked about nothing heavy, laughed at old stories, cried when it was time to leave. No promises, just a start. David still checked the locks every night, 3 times, sometimes 4. I still flinched at unexpected buzzes on my phone. We both kept burners in a drawer, powered off, just in case. Paranoia didn't vanish. It just got quieter. A background hum instead of a scream. One evening in October, almost a year to the day since the funeral, we sat on the back porch watching the sun drop behind the trees. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. David reached over, took my hand. No words, just fingers laced together. I didn't pull away. "I don't know if we'll ever be the same," he said quietly. "No," I agreed. "We won't."
But we're here. Yeah, we're here. We stayed out until the mosquitoes drove us inside. He kissed my forehead before we went to our separate rooms. I didn't lock the door that night. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. I went downstairs. David was at the stove making eggs. He looked up, smiled. Small, real. "Morning." "Morning." We ate on the porch, watched birds at the feeder I'd finally hung, talked about nothing important. It felt almost normal. Almost. The money never came. The insurance company fought the claim for fraud. We didn't contest it. Mark and Laura were sentenced, 25 years each, no parole for the first 15. They appealed. Lost. The kids finished high school under supervision, then college on scholarships and loans. They worked summers, paid what restitution they could. They visited more often. Hugs lasted longer. Conversations went deeper. We didn't talk about trust the way we used to. We just lived it, one day at a time, one small choice at a time.
I still wake up sometimes, heart racing, convinced the phone will buzz with that same message. I am still alive. Trust no one. But it never does. Because the real nightmare wasn't the faked death. It wasn't even the poison or the greed. It was realizing that the people closest to you could turn into strangers when the stakes got high enough. I forgave David for disappearing because he came back, for me, for us. The rest? Some scars don't fade. They just stop bleeding. They become part of the skin you wear every day. And every night before I turn out the light, I look at the man sleeping beside me, back in our shared bed now, for months, and I whisper to the dark, trust no one, not even yourself. But maybe, just maybe, trust him a little more tomorrow than you did today. That's enough. For now, that's enough.